exponential change. And what it looks like, if I were to draw a chart, I'd ask them to take down the screen here so you won't be able to see it. I was going to project it for you, but it just is a relatively flat line that goes along, starting, if you will, at the year 0 AD, and then continues along, and then begins to rise a little bit around the 1500s, and then around the 1900s begins to take off, and then looks like this as you move into 2000 and 2008. And what is it that is changing in that way? Well, here are a couple of things that I've written down. This is a part of the book, and if you're interested in the book, you can get the flyer out front. But here are some things that are changing exponentially. The size and density of human populations, CO2 emissions and global warming, the destructive power and availability of military technology, species extinctions, resistance to antibiotics, vulnerability to pandemics, natural catastrophes, many of which, and severe weather conditions, simply because of this exponential growth and because of CO2 and global warming. Loss of biodiversity and cultural diversity, unregulated economic transactions, and every day more than $1 trillion is traded in currency without any regulation whatsoever. The global impact of environmental decisions, the capacity to kill and maim civilians in warfare. But among these also is the growth of scientific knowledge and technological capacity, giving us to some extent the illusion that, and to some extent the reality, that we may be able to do something about these. In addition to exponential growth, we have some things that are changing incrementally, that is, non-exponentially. And these include the implementation of solutions to poverty and hunger. We may find these solutions, and we may be in creating them, but we're not creating them exponentially. In fact, if anything, we're doing the exact opposite, so that the effort to solve environmental problems in the United States leads to an emphasis on biofuels, which leads farmers in Brazil to stop planting soy and start planting corn and start tearing down more of the Amazon rainforest in order to be able to plant corn to create biofuel for cars that are going to be operating in the United States. This is an illustration, it seems to me, of the beginnings of what we are all, I think, to some extent aware of, but may not know precisely, which is ecology is all about balance, and balance is highly sensitive. And what chaos means scientifically, there's a scientific definition of chaos, and the scientific definition is sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Meaning, what is it that if you change just a little thing, sooner or later changes everything? Well, the answer is virtually all of these systems. The weather is an illustration. So there's an idea that many of you have heard of called the butterfly effect, which means that the flapping of a butterfly's wings in the rainforest in the Amazon can mathematically, predictably, in this general sense of, sort of chaos predictability, at least deterministically, if I can put it that way, cause a tornado in Texas. And this has been mathematically proven that this is the case. So all of these systems that we are talking about are unbelievably sensitive. In addition to these changes that are taking place incrementally, here are some others. Reductions in bigotry and prejudice. Assertions of territoriality and willingness to use warfare. Vulnerability of civilian populations to terror. The effectiveness of international regulatory institutions. Increased life expectancy and declining child mortality, infant mortality, leading to, of course, population growth. The mistreatment of women and children, the rapidity of government responses to ecological problems, the capacity for international cooperation to halt environmental destruction. And finally, the most important is awareness of the extent and seriousness of these problems. Here's Einstein, after hearing about the explosion of the atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, famously commented, everything has changed except the way we think. And that's true of these ecological problems. What does this have to do with mediators beyond borders? I shouldn't just say ecological, because that makes us think about the environment, but actually these are social problems, they're economic problems, they're political problems. We are spending trillions of dollars on the war in Iraq. How can we pretend that this has nothing to do with the economic situation that we are now finding ourselves in? It's just not possible. This is a system, and systems are sensitively dependent on their conditions, on changes in their conditions. So we can see how all of these things interact. Let me give you an illustration of how profound this point is about the awareness of the extent and seriousness of the problem. This is a mathematical analogy. Imagine for a moment that you have a bottle, and that in that bottle you have 2 bacteria, and that the bacteria double in number every minute, and that you know that at the end of 1 hour, the bacteria will fill the bottle. The question is, how much warning do the bacteria have in advance of the fact that they're about to fill the bottle? Well, if you think about this, the answer is that at 59 minutes to the hour, the bottle is only half full, meaning none at all. And frankly, our bottle is half full. Now, what do we do about this? Well, the answer is that whatever remedies you may seek to apply, no matter what they are, they require a transformation in the way that the world handles conflict between nation states, between religions, between cultures, between indigenous forest dwellers and developers who want to sort of tear down the forest, or ranchers who want to use it to raise cattle. Meaning that in addition to requiring massive shifts in how we live and how we interact with each other, we also have to learn how to get along, which is 10 times tougher, right? Get along across racial, cultural, religious, ethnic, gender, all of the various national origin, whatever forms of barriers that we have erected for ourselves. And we don't have a lot of time, frankly, to do it in. How does this fit in with Mediators Beyond Borders? Well, I wish I could say, the subtitle of the book that I wrote, the title is Conflict Revolution, Mediating Evil, War, Injustice, and Terrorism. There's another subtitle which is it's more than a little tongue-in-cheek. It's called How Mediators Can Help Save the Planet. And you're supposed to smile at that, and then you're supposed to think, oh my God, it's true. And the oh my God, it's true part means, what are the skills that are required in order for these conversations, for these negotiations to take place even around global warming? Well, the answer is you have to figure out better ways of communicating than yelling and screaming. You have to find better ways of negotiating than playing it tough and walking away with all your marbles. You have to find better ways of resolving conflicts than warfare. You have to find better ways of treating each other than through discrimination and prejudice. These are the things that we have to do. And these are precisely the skills that all of us, each of us, in conflict resolution is learning. I don't believe for a minute that Mediators Beyond Borders is going to solve these problems.